welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so it's time to put the onions out now. I just want to give you a couple of tips, always things that I look for when I'm doing the onions. I'll show you me putting them out in the garden as soon as the rain stops and I've got the ground ready. But if you haven't already been out and got your onion sets, which are the little onions that you put in the ground, now's a good time to go out and get them. Now, there's loads of garden centres that be selling these. You can also buy them online. I always go to Ulluco's for mine because I find Ulluco's have always got a good variety, and they are a really competitive price as well. So if you are going to go out there and you want some good ones, what I recommend is go to Ulluco's and buy your sets from there. Now, there's a few things to look out for when you're buying your sets. Irrespective of where you're buying them from, what you want is you want a nice set where if you look at that one, that's a really good one. What you want to do is look that it doesn't need to be shriveled at all. So what you're looking for is a set that isn't shriveled and it's nice and firm. That's the best thing to look for. The second thing is you don't want them too big. Ironically, if the onion set is too big, it is likely to run to seed if you're not careful. So something like that is ideal. Anything that's too big, that's possibly a little bit borderline. Anything that's that big could potentially run to seed. So you want them about that big, not much smaller than that. I'd say probably something like this is about as small as you want to go, and something like that is about as big as you want to go. Anything that's too big is likely to run to seed. Anything that's small is not likely to grow as strong as the bigger ones. Now, that's the first tip. Second tip is always look for any type of sort of mould or mildew or anything like that. You can get it in some of the older garden centres. So always look out for stuff like that. You should have a nice golden skin on them, that's not broken. Anything that's broken isn't going to be any good. But look for any sort of damage on them or anything like that. A set like that's got the outer skin damage, I'm not going to put that in. I'll throw that away. So any of these, like in that one as well, I'll throw that one away. Any that are already shooting, I would avoid, to be honest with you. There's no reason why you can't put them in the ground, to be honest with you, and they'll grow all right. But I would, if there's any with little green shoots on, I would tend to avoid them if you possibly can do. So you want some that haven't already shooted. That if you look at the other end where the root is, you want to just have a look there just to make sure they haven't started to send roots out. That's another sign that they've been kept too warm and they've already started. So that there'll be a weakened onion for that. So what you want is one ideally like that, nice size. It hasn't got roots or a shoot coming out of it. The outer covering is not damaged because that's going to protect it when it's in the ground. And if they're like that, then you're all ready to go. There's loads of varieties out there, depending on what you want. There's giant varieties, there's sort of middle size varieties, and obviously there's the smaller shallots and all that kind of stuff as well. So they're all available in most of the shops. Ulluco's have quite a good range. Some are quite expensive, some are run of the mill. I always grow, these ones are, I think these are turbo. So a quick look at the bag. I think I've got turbo. Yes, these are turbo sets. I'm actually growing two different varieties this year. There's turbo and there's another one. Hang on. Yes, this is the other variety. This is Sturen. That's the variety there. So I'm growing these. I've not grown this variety before, I don't believe. so I thought I'd give it a go. But these are the same type as Turbo. I'm going to be growing 2 different types. I've got 3 bags of these, which is going to give me probably about 10 rows in the allotment. So you probably, if you're only going to grow, sort of 3-4 rows, you only need 1 of these bags really. You need to be placing them about sort of 6 inches apart, in rows 6 inches apart, and make sure you can get up there. You are most certainly going to need to get up there with the hoe and weed them out during the year. So don't plant them too close together, because you can't get the hoe between them to weed. And don't plant them too far apart, because you're just wasting the ground. And obviously plant them singly. You need to plant them so that the little shoot at the top there is just under the ground. Reason being is birds are a real pain. Will think that's a worm coming out of the ground. If you plant it like that, so that bit's sticking above the ground like that, they'll think that's a worm, and the birds will come along and they'll pull it out of the ground for you, and then you'll come up the following day and find half of them all over the ground, flat on the ground like that. So always bury them, so by the time the little shoot comes out of the ground, it's got its roots in, and if a bird comes down and tries and pulls it out, the roots are there anchoring it in. So what I always do is plant them so the level of the ground is there, if you like, so they're just below the ground. So when you first put them in, there shouldn't be anything showing on the ground. That's the way I do it. You can either put a drill and then put them in the drill and then backfill, or do what I do. Rake all the ground level, get it all nice and level, and then what I do is I pull the ground back with my finger. So I have one in my hand. I pull the ground back with my finger and then just drop that in the hole and then put the ground back over it. Don't be tempted to get the onion and push it in the ground like that, because you'll damage the bit where the root comes out there. So you want the ground to be nice and loose. So dig the ground over a week or so, or just before you put them in, so the ground's nice and loose. If it's nice and loose, it'll get its roots in there, and it'll be able to get itself established. If the ground's hard, it won't be able to get its roots down easily, and the onion will be stunted. All onions will go over in August, irrespective of when you plant them. So to get the longest growing period, you need to plant them as early as you possibly can do. They're not overly prone to frost damage, so there's no reason why they can't go in now. Really, I was hoping to have had these in the ground by now, but with the weather being as it is, it's not been suitable. So if you've got a dry period and you haven't got them in already, get your onions in now, because the longer you've got them in the ground, the bigger they'll grow, and you'll get a better harvest from your set. Okay, so I'm just putting the onions in, and basically what I've done is I always put 5 rows in at a time. Now if you can see behind me, you'll see 5 strings, and either side of that I've got some planks which I always walk on. Now these planks are going to stay here for the duration of the year, and the reason I do this, I put 5 rows, then some wood, then some more rows, so that I can walk up between them and hoe, and if I need to, the reason I put 5 rows and 2 planks is I can get 1 foot on one side, 1 foot on the other side on the 2 planks, and then I can get down and get the weeds. So that's the that's why I put 5 rows and 2 planks. I have in the past put more, but you end up doing the split, so I'd advise 5, possibly 4 if you're not quite as young as me. But anyway, to put them in, I always put them in this way. Now I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of off screen, but what I'm doing is I'm putting my finger in, creating a hole, and then putting the onion in. Don't push the onion in, as I said. What you need to do is obviously get the root like that, make the hole like that, and then bob it in. And you want the onion to go down around 2 or 3 inches, so the top of the onion is just off the surface of the ground. And what I tend to do is I do 5 rows, start with the middle one, and then work your way out from there. So you should be able to see me do this next one now. So the next onion is going to go here. So my finger goes in, creates the hole. You don't want any hard soil at the bottom. This soil's literally just been dug. Root first, bob it in right the way to the bottom, cover it over. Then I can see where I've just been. So that onion goes in there, like that. This onion goes in here, probably just off screen for you. Here, which is obviously level with that. And then the last one here over just off screen. So I'll do one more row so you can see. So if I just shuffle back on the planks, so start in the middle, yeah, 6 inches away from your last one, and just pull the ground back, put your onion in, so it's all the way at the bottom of the hole like that. Again, onion in, working out the sides like that. and then the same the other side. One hole there. Now I don't know if you saw the action there, but basically what I'm doing is I'm putting my finger in and then pulling it back and then putting the onion in there where I basically haven't squashed the earth underneath, because what you want, as I explained before in the previous video, is if that's your onion set, you want the roots to go out really well at the bottom. So what you don't want to do is compress the soil below the onion. So just put your finger in, pull it back slightly, and then the ground at the bottom is not so compressed. Bob your onion in, and then just cover it over. Working your way out like that. As I say, this ground has literally just been dug, so it's nice and loose. There's no hard bits at all. I've gone through it. This was rotavated a couple of weeks ago, and I've just forked it over. And as the ground settles, obviously it'll start to expose the onions a little bit. Obviously, what you don't want to do is put the onion in too deep, because if the onion's sitting in like a bowl of earth underneath, that's when you can get the rot at the bottom. So you know, you don't want to put them in too deep. But what I've found is if you dig the ground, put the onions in. I've got a bit of a lump here. Put the onions in just below the ground like that. As the ground settles, because I've just dug it, it'll then expose the onions later on. Okay, so I'm just going to pot up the Ulluco. Now, these have come through to me from a company called Incredible Vegetables down in Devon, and this is what they look like. So I've got some red ones which kind of look like that. I don't know if you can see. There's some yellow ones which kind of look like that. They're like little teeny potatoes really, and I've also got some green ones like that, and there's some sort of speckledy orange and yellow ones which kind of look a little bit like that. So they're all pretty much the same thing. I understand that the yellow ones are the sort of the heaviest fruity ones, but basically what we need to do is that just like potatoes, they get little chits on them like that, and so as they're starting to chip, what I want to do is start them off in some pots, get them going, and then what I can do is plant them out in the garden in a month or so's time when all the frost is gone. Now, the reason I'm putting them in pots is I want to give these the absolute best opportunity to heavily crop for me. So next year I've got plenty of sort of tubers to go at, and obviously some to eat as well. Now these are Andean root tubers. It's the first time I've ever grown them. As I say, I've bought these from incrediblevegetables.co.uk, so if you need any of these, I highly recommend you go there. And basically all I need to do is plant these now, just like a potato, so the little chip facing upwards, about 10 centimetres down into the ground. Now what I'm going to do is I've got a pot here with some nice fresh compost in. This is the normal compost that I use, the multi-purpose clover compost, and all I'm going to do is just bob that down into a hole with the chit facing up. So I've lost the chit now. Where is it? There it is. So I'm just going to put that down into the hole facing up. So that's about 10 centimetres or so down, and I'm just going to press that down so I know that there's no air pockets or anything like that. Just give it a quick tap. That's obviously a red one, so so that's one red one. And all the others are exactly the same. The yellow ones haven't really got chits on yet, but I can see where they're going to be coming from. So what I'll do is again just put my finger down like that, 10 centimetres down roughly, and then put the tuber down the side there. Again, push the compost down around it, and then just firm it down with another pot to make sure we've got equal pressure around there. And the reason you're doing that again, obviously, is that you've got no air pockets anywhere around, so the soil is touching all of the tubes. So that's a yellow one. So I'll just put that one at the back. Not that the colour really matters, but I just want to keep them all together so I know what's what, so I can see how they're growing. Now here's another red one. There's the little chit on the top of that. So again, all I'm going to do is do the rest of them like this. Push them right down so they're about 10 centimetres down. And what I'm going to do is give these some fresh tap water, and I'm going to put these in a frost-free greenhouse. And if we do get any sort of bad frost, what I'll do is I'll cover these over with a bit of fleece, just to give them a little bit more protection. But that's another red one, so I'll put that there. But so I'll grow those on in the greenhouse until it's ready to put out in about a month's time, when it's or perhaps a little bit longer than that, about 6 weeks. so towards the middle of April, middle of May. Then I'll plant those out into the open ground, and exactly like you would potatoes, and I'll plant them at the same level as this, so the actual sort of the seed tube, if you like, is 10 centimetres below the ground, and then grow those on, and I'll show you what it looks like as they're growing. Okay, it's one of them days today. It's just going to rain, I think. I've been trying to get the onions out for the last few days, but because of this weather, the ground's got really wet, and I was going to try again today because we've had a dry night, but unfortunately it's raining again, as you can probably hear. So I'm going to have to postpone the onions going out again a bit. But if it's dry by you, now is most certainly the time to get your onions in. So anyway, whilst it's raining, I thought I'd do a few of the comments that have come over in the last week or so. So the first one comes from Sabine Parker, and he was asking about which is the best way to position your rows in your allotment. Now, I think he's just gone on a new allotment, and he's not sure if to put the rows from sort of east to west or from north to south, either that way or this way sort of thing. So the way I always think about it is the sun always rises in the east, assuming you're in the northern hemisphere, always rises in the east and then goes round the south, and then sets in the west. So it comes up in the east, goes round, and then sets in the west. So what you want to do is put your rows from east to west, or as much as you can do. The reason being is, as the sun comes round, that means that all of the row will basically get some sun. If you do it north to west, obviously one side will get the morning sun, the other side will get the evening sun. Now, I guess, you can say, does it really matter? I don't think it's too detrimental if you do it north to south. But I always think if you do it east to west, then the whole row will get the sun during the day. And I mean, during the summer anyway, the sun pretty much goes over the top. But I always think for things like some plants, even though you think that they're not particularly sun reliant, if you like, things like potatoes. The thing you need to look out for potatoes is that they're kept dry. And if you get some areas that are a little bit moist or stay damp, that's where you're likely to get the blight attacking. So what you want to do is keep the tops as dry as you possibly can do. So that's one example. Obviously other plants are a bit more reliant on the sun. I mean, all plants are, to a degree anyway. But I would suggest that you set out the rows from east to west. That's traditionally the way it's done. The next one comes from Allotment Bubble, and talking about the door spring, the door latch on the tunnel. And what I'm going to do is, as soon as it stops raining, I'm going to get the welder up the allotment. I've actually borrowed an extension lead, so I can get right up into the allotment with the welder. Obviously I need electric for the welder. And what I'm going to do is weld a sort of bit going into the tunnel, so I can open and shut it from the inside. I completely get what you're saying. Basically, Allotment Bubble was saying to put some door springs on the door, so that at any point the door will spring shut on you. So if you leave it open, basically it'll always spring shut. The only problem I've got with that is when I want to get in and out with the wheelbarrow or some other bits and bobs, the door will want to shut on me all the while. But yes, I completely understand where you're coming from. And what I'm thinking of doing is, I mean, the farmers do that as well. If there's a sort of low tech version of that, if you like, where you have a piece of rope between the door and some stationary structure, then you put a weight on it, so as the weight pulls down, it'll pull the door shut. So that's another way of doing it. But I'm going to be putting a little bit on the catch so I can move it from the inside, and also there's been a couple of comments about putting some brushes around and stuff like that. So I'm going to have a look at doing a few bits and bobs like that. I'll see how I go. I may well take you up on the idea and put some springs on the door as well. But I'll see how we go for now, and I shall keep you up to date with what's going on. Next one comes from Donald Paulson, and he was saying, can you can you grow Swiss chard in exactly the same way as the kale? Well, the kale's doing really well at the moment. As you can see, that's only a week in. As you can see, they're already sort of half an inch or so tall. They're the seed leaves, so they're not the true leaves, but they're already growing really well. So thank you, Richard, for your seed. They're the other ones there. They're the ones I grew slightly more of. That's the Scottish chard. But you can put your Swiss chard in exactly the same way as that. But the things with Swiss chard is the roots get easily disturbed, and they're not overly strong, to be honest with you. So what I would suggest you do is put it in. I'm going in here, but get some like module. You know, like the. What you can do is plant them in sort of modules like this, and sort of plant them out in the garden. Now, there's no reason why you can't do that. One good advantage of doing that is obviously you can give it a head start in the greenhouse. So what you can do is get them started in the greenhouse and put them out. Traditionally, I've always put mine straight in the ground outside. So as soon as the ground warms up, sort of, you know, towards the end of April, you know, as soon as you can, you know, if you put your hands on the ground and feel the ground, you know, if it feels nice and warm, that's the time to put it in, because they'll germinate. If the ground feels cold, then wait a bit, because the seed can rot in the ground. But yes, what you can do is put it in modules, get them started in the greenhouse, and then just plant their modules out into the garden. One thing you need to be careful of with anything like this, because I'm going to do my beetroot this way as well, in modules, and plant them out, which isn't what I normally do. You need to be careful that the roots don't get damaged. So as you put them out, be absolutely sure you don't damage the roots, because they're easily damaged on plants like that. So, but yeah, there's no reason why you can't do that, and I will be doing some of that myself this year. The next, but don't try and prick them out. That's the point I'm making. Sorry, don't plant them like this and then try and prick them out, because you'll damage the roots. Put them straight to modules and don't disturb the roots, and then just plant the whole module out. The next one comes from Karen Trumper, and she was saying, is it okay to mix different types of beans on the allotment? I'm actually going to grow two types of beans myself this year. I'm going to grow the usual run of beans, which I'm going to put down the bottom end, and I always grow loads of runner beans. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll see that I grow about 20 odd foot's worth of bean plants, around 108 canes, to give you an idea, and I always get sort of 60-70 kilos of beans, which I fill the freezer with every year. I'm going to be doing runner beans, but I'm also going to be doing this year, I'm also going to be growing some more like French beans, the round ones, you know, the sort of, you know, more like a finger shape, if you like, but they're quite thin, about that long, and they grow sort of two metres high as well. There are other varieties I've grown in the past. I've grown a lot of dwarf French beans, which only grow about sort of 18 inches off the ground. Problem with them is when it rains, it splashes up the dirt and they go onto the beans, so you have to always wash the beans, which is a bit of a pain. So I like the beans to be up on canes, so that they're up and out the way, and you know, they're nice and clean, so you don't have to wash them so much. Anyway, I always do rinse them anyway. But yeah, I'm going to be growing some French beans as well. The question that she got is, will they cross-pollinate, basically? And yes, they will. All beans are the same family, basically. So what you want to do is keep them as far separated as you possibly can do. If you've got a reasonable sized plot, put some beans down one end and your other type of beans up the other end. If they do cross-pollinate, there's no problems. The beans will come true that year. But if you're saving the seed, that's the trick. If you save the seed will, potentially you'll get insects going from one to the other, and they'll sort of cross-pollinate, and then the seeds next year will not be true to as it was this year, because they'll have cross-pollinated with a different variety. So you could get all sorts of things. Now I always save my runner beans. I've got some here. These are some that I saved last year. I've got loads of these. So these are the runner beans that came from my great grandmother. So that's what they should kind of look like now. Not ready to plant them out yet. You need to be planting these out in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. So don't don't put them in quite yet. But if you put the plants together, what you will get is cross pollination. It shouldn't really matter too much. You're still going to get nice beans, but they're going to be some kind of hybrid between the two. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grow some beans up further this end, and I'm going to grow some beans, the normal runner beans, down the bottom end, to keep them separated as much as possible. So that's the best bit of advice I can give you. Next couple of comments come from Clayman. He's put a couple of comments on. First one is how to sort out potatoes for seed, basically. Well, all you need to do is when you dig the potatoes up, what I always do is just dig them all up and put them in a bucket, wait for them to dry, and then I'll sort them out. I'll sort out the big ones for bakers, and I'll sort the middle ones out for mash and chips or whatever else you're going to do with them, boiling potatoes. And then anything that's kind of smaller than either a golf ball or smaller, I always save that for seed the following year. And all I do is basically make sure they're dry, and then put them in a bucket, and then keep them somewhere cool and dark, and then they will store quite nicely over the winter. As soon as you get a bit of warm weather, as soon as things start warming up, the potatoes are naturally going to start to chit. Now, I don't know if you noticed in my last video, my potatoes have chitted quite well this year because we've had the warm weather that we've had this year. You know, they have started to shoot a bit more than I actually realised. The ones at the bottom of the bucket have got chits on maybe 2 or 3 inches high, which is a bit too big really. But yeah, the way to sort them out is basically sort out any that are kind of golf ball size or slightly bigger, and you want to keep the potatoes that aren't green, they've got no slug damage or any disease or anything like that. Make sure they're nice and dry, and then store them in a bucket. What you can do is, there's no reason why you can't lay them out in a tray. You know, last year, you know, the year you picked them, or dig them up, whatever. There's no reason why you can't do that. All I do basically is sort them all out and put the smaller ones into a bucket, and they're the ones I save for the seed the following year. The next comment that Clayman put down was about rubbing off the chits, and he was saying ideal 3. In all honesty, it depends what type of potatoes you want. I tend to like a nice variety of potatoes. You know, I like some big ones, some middle-sized ones, and some smaller ones as well. It depends on what type of potatoes you want. If you want lots of small potatoes, then leave all the chits on the potato. If you want only big sort of jacket-sized potatoes, then rub all the chits off, apart from sort of 2 or 3, sort of 2 or even 1. And the smaller the number of chits, so you know, like 1, 2 or 3, the bigger the potatoes are going to be. If you leave sort of 4 or 5 chits on there, then the potatoes, you're going to get a lot more smaller ones, but they're not going to be, you know, anywhere near as big. Now, what I always do is, different people do this different ways. You can either knock the chits off as you put them out on the tray, or you can knock them off as you put them in the ground. I typically knock them off as I put them in the ground for 2 reasons. One, so I can pick the healthiest chits, because when they're small you don't really know what they're going to come out like. So I can pick the healthiest chits, and also what you do find is when you put them in the ground, some of them could get potentially damaged. Now, if you knock off all of the chits apart from 2, for example, and then as you're sorting the potato out to put in the ground, one of them gets knocked off as well, then you've only got the one left. Whereas if you leave them all on there, it's not going to be too detrimental if the potatoes are big enough to support them. You know, there's no reason why, as you put it in the ground, you can just knock off the ones you don't want there and put it in. Then you know, you've got a better idea. So different people do it different ways. That's the way I do it. There's no reason why you can't pull them off when you first put them into the trays. But what I tend to do is take them off as I'm putting them in the ground. So you know, I know what I've got in each of the rows, so I don't have to sort them out later. But if you want lots of small potatoes, sort of potatoes kind of that big, then leave all the chits on. If you want big jacket potatoes, but obviously fewer of them, then knock all the chits off apart from 1 or 2, and then you know, you'll get bigger potatoes. That's basically the rule of thumb. We've had a few comments on about tomato varieties. One's come from Melissa Wilson, and she says she likes growing quite a few different varieties, and the one that she recommends is Elisa Craig, Ilsacraig, and she says that's a really nice old variety with nice flavour and shape. There's also been a couple of recommendations from Jacqueline Bramhall, and she says, I think it's pronounced Cerisa, C-E-R-I-S-E, or cerise. That's like a cherry tomato. And she also recommends Sun Gold. I have grown Sun Gold in the past. That is a nice variety. If you like small tomatoes, that they are definitely 2 to go for. But I've not grown the cerise, I think you said. But yeah, Sun Gold I've definitely grown in the past. The next comment comes from Karen Trumper, and she said that she also saved her potatoes, and her grandfather gave her some potatoes 20 years ago, and she's been doing exactly what I do, and she's never had a problem. So that's another sort of bears testament to there's no reason to go out and buy seed potatoes. And she calls them, I think, popper potatoes or something like that, after her grandfather, which is really nice. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't save potatoes. So thank you, Karen, for your comment. Next one comes from Me Loves Coffee, and first thing I want to say is thank you very much for recommending the Culluco. As you've probably seen from an early clip, I'm not sure if it's in this video or another one, I have been and bought some Culluco, which is it's similar to a potato. They look kind of like that. In fact, they look very much like that because that's what it is. I've already put them in ready to go, so that's another unusual vegetable I'm going to be growing this year. So thank you, Me Loves Coffee. I've taken your advice and I've gone and bought some, and I've got them ready to go in. And the next comment from Me Loves Coffee was also polytunnels. Now, they're asking, and there's been a few comments as well about this, but of other people. Thank you for your comments. But they were saying, where's the best place to get tunnels from? There's a whole raft of tunnels on the allotment, on the horticultural type shops and that, which you can get on eBay, and there's also all sorts of stuff on the internet. And there's a whole variety of tunnels, and anything like that, it's always down to kind of what you get what you pay for at the end of the day. There's lots of cheap tunnels out there that'll last you 1 or 2 seasons, and then basically the plastic's gone, and the framework's really lightweight and flimsy, and it's going to blow away basically. There's also other ones out there which are the Rolls Royce of tunnels, and and you can spend sort of a couple of £1,000 or even more than that on tunnels that are really robust. So there's obviously there's a happy medium somewhere in there where you find these tunnels which are affordable, but also reasonably robust and will give you the longevity that you're after. Obviously, if you're investing in something like that and you're going to go and buy it, you want it to last at least, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So yeah, I mean there are loads of ones, but the comment that I did put on there is the one weak point that I've seen is the door. Always make sure, if you are going to buy a tunnel, make sure there's a door frame in there, and there's a robust way of fastening the plastic to the door, and make sure there's some kind of door mechanism in there. These zip type doors don't last very long from the experience I've seen other people having on the allotments. The zips tend to go, and they also tend to rip down the zip as well. So what you want is a tunnel that's got good plastic on. That's another good tip. Get some that's got some of the really good grade plastic on there, that's also resistant to the UV radiation from the sun, because I've seen people buying tunnels over on my allotment here, and after 12 months, the sun is the UV from the sun, the polythene basically just disintegrates, and it just perishes on the tunnel. So yeah, what you want to do is get good polythene, obviously a good strong frame, good polythene, and a good door on it of some kind or another. There's various ways to do it, but yeah, those are the things I'd look for. And I think you need to be spending a few £100 to get a really good one. These ones that you get for like £150 or something like that, they ain't going to last very long, to be honest with you. I think you need to be, obviously dependent on the size, but I think you need to be investing a couple of £300 on one that's going to last you basically. And shop around as well. The next comment, or should I say, this is actually one of my comments. This doesn't come from anybody. Because of the birdhouse gourds that I'm growing, I've been doing a little bit of research. I've been looking on the internet, in books, and on YouTube and that as well. And I found one person on YouTube which is really good, stands out from the rest, to be honest with you. And this young lady's Bernadette Fox. Now her channel's called Bernadette's Garden, or Bernadette's, or if you put Bernadette Fox in there, that'll also come up. And she does all sorts of things on gourds. She's got quite a few videos on there. I think there's sort of 60 odd videos, I think, or perhaps a bit less than that, 50 videos. on gourds and stuff like that, and she's got some really good ideas on there, and she's got a bit of a feel going on, and she just plants loads of gourds in there, and she's got, and she decorates them and makes all sorts of vases and birdhouses out of them and all sorts of stuff. So if you have got a spare half an hour, have a look at Bernadette's channel. She's got quite a few good ideas on there, and I've had a look, and I thought it was really good, very interesting. The one comment that she did say, and I brought the seeds up with me, is the seeds that I planted last week. I've not done this before, but a tip that Bernadette's got, and I thought I'd share it with you because I think it's probably a worthwhile tip to improve the germination of your seeds. If you look at the gourd seeds, this is the birdhouse gourd. If you look at the actual seed, at one end you'll see that sort of square bit. Now these corners, what she actually recommends you do is either sand them off or cut them off with a pair of scissors. And you need to be reasonably careful. You only want to just nick the corners off. She actually does it with a pair of nail trimmers, but she cuts off that sort of corner bit there. So if you imagine there's the seed, this little corner bit here, and that little corner bit there, she nicks that off, and she recommends that that's the best way to get germination. So I've already planted 4, and I thought I've got plenty of seeds, I'll plant some more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another 4, but what this time round I'm going to nick off the corners, and we'll see which ones germinate better. And I think Bernadette's probably right because she grows loads of these. So what I'll do is I'll nick off the corners, plant 4 more in exactly the same way as I've done the first 4, and then we'll see how these grow compared to the others. So yeah, recommended from me. Go to Bernadette's garden channel and have a look at the birdhouse gourd idea she's got, and I think you may all get hooked on that. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you've got below to anything that I've done in this episode or any previous ones, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.